Midday. Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to the news here on 3FM 92.7. We're coming to you live from our studio at Adisawi Kanda here in Accra, and Tamale. We're live on Kesmi 107.1 FM. If you can hear us in White on W93.5 around the world, we're streaming live on 3news.com. Download the tuning app from the Google Play or Apple iOS store and listen to us on the go. Coming up this afternoon, civil society group intensifying calls for the sacking of board chair of the Ghana National Petroleum Corporation along with its CEO over a decision to offer 50% stake in the country's Jubilee Oil Holdings Limited to a South African firm. The board chair, meanwhile, has been responding to the calls for his sacking, stating he has done nothing wrong. We get reactions for you, plus hear from the minority on this matter. Also this afternoon, Ghana Integrity Initiative expresses grave concerns over alleged vote buying that characterized the Kumewu by-election amid calls for stiffer sanctions against persons and political parties found to have induced voters. This afternoon, we bring you a wrap of the good, the bad, and the ugly about the just ended polls. And much later, we take you to the court where the state prosecution is bringing criminal charges against former Asin North MP Richard Jachikwesin following the Supreme Court's annulling of the election which took him to Parliament last week. We have details of these stories and a lot more if you stay with us for the next 30 minutes. A pleasure that you could be a part of this afternoon's bulletin. It's streaming live on Facebook. Our handles 3FM927 as well as on Twitter 3FM927. And I am Eric Mawuena Egbeta. Let's settle for the details now, because civil society groups in the country are intensifying their demands for President Akufo-Addo to sack board chair of the Ghana National Petroleum Corporation, Freddie Blay, along with the CEO of the corporation. It follows revelations that the board chair, along with the CEO, had offered up to 50% stake in the Jubilee Oil Holding Limited to a firm in South Africa named Petro SA. But the board chair of the Ghana National Petroleum Corporation, Freddie Blay, he's been reacting to the calls and rubbished them for asking that the president relieves him of his position. He says that he did nothing wrong. He's been speaking to Accra-based City FM.
Well, I myself, if I'm fired, I'm not the one who appointed myself. Possible I could be fired, but I don't see the reason why people ask me over this issue. I've done nothing wrong. I've examined my question. I thought I was protecting the interest of the nation. I'm convinced about that in good faith. And if I just think otherwise, and those who appointed me, the powers that they appointed me, say that you should leave. So be it, my brother.
Has the president spoken to you about this since the issue came up?
Yes, spoken to me about it. Yes. We haven't got to that extent yet.
Do you see that coming?
I don't see it.
Or do you think you've convinced the president with your explanation?
It's not a question of convincing the president. It's the facts will speak for themselves. You know, the law will talk. And they've asked for a few documents about it. And we definitely doing that. The president will maybe invite the minister and invite me as well, and then point out where a few mistakes have gone on and where we should have been agreeable, and then where we should have, come together, and or if we disagree, then of course minister's position would prevail. That's all.
Just to be on a safe and a sure side, because it's on national radio, the two of you are public officers. Do Ghanaians have your word that you and your minister are in good terms and that there's no petty squabble or quibbling happening at the energy sector of Ghana?
Umaru Sanders, I don't think we have any differences that are so serious that it's detrimental to the interests of Ghana.
Thank you.
Napo has strong opinion, and I'm also a little
That's the board chair of the Ghana National Petroleum Corporation, Freddie Blaze, speaking in that interview. Let's hear from the CSOs now, who are demanding, amongst many other things, that the president relieves him and the CEO of the oppositions.
We demand the immediate removal of GNPC CEO Opoku Ahweneye Dankwa and the board chairman Freddie W. Blaze from their respective positions, as they have become a threat to Ghana's interest in the petroleum sector. Additionally, we demand the immediate transfer of JOHL and all its assets from Cayman Island and other jurisdictions to GNPC. We demand immediate disclosure of the Ake development from the Petroleum Commission and the government. We firmly believe that a country micromanaged by the IMF cannot be seen to engage in fiscal recklessness.
That's the CEOs there speaking, and we'll get a lot more on this for you if you stay with us here on 3FM 92.7, because the minority in Parliament, they have been reacting to this as well, amongst many things, demanding certain actions from the government. They had in fact issued a statement earlier in the week raising the concerns in relation to this, and I'll just walk you through that statement from the ranking member on the Mines and Energy Committee of Parliament, and it says that the minority has sadly uncovered a clandestine and surreptitious attempt by the GNPC and its board chair to sell the 7% shares acquired by the Republic of Ghana from Anadako West Cape 3 Points Company to Petroleum Oil and Gas Corporation of South Africa, Petro SA. As usual, we've cited correspondences between the GNPC and Petro SA revealing a covert attempt by the GNPC to offload the said shares, which we consider as illegal and unconscionable. We've equally taken note of the usual desperate attempt by the Minister of Finance to commit Ghana yet again by borrowing huge sums of money from Litasco, a private company, on the back of the Jubilee Oil Holdings Limited, by forward selling the Republic of Ghana's crude oil expected from the Jubilee Oil Holdings Limited. For a government that has overborrowed its way into a state of bankruptcy, the least this government can do will be to refrain from such reckless borrowing, especially against future oil receipts. This action is highly reprehensible, and all steps must be taken to pull the brakes on this government from their insatiable desire to keep borrowing with the least opportunity. We asked him also in relation, that's the ranking member John Jinapo, on the defense by the board chair of the Ghana National Petroleum Corporation, and he, amongst many other things, says that the board chair is wrong. We're working the telephone lines. Unfortunately, our calls to him now have gone unanswered. As and when we get him, we'll bring his analysis to you on this development. But let's do some other stories now, because the Ghana Integrity Initiative, they've condemned alleged vote buying that characterized the by-election in the Kumewu constituency. The governing New Patriotic Party retained the Kumewu seat after its candidate, Ernest Yawini, resoundingly beat three others in Tuesday's polls. All the elections have been touted as one of the most peaceful by-elections in recent times, has however been dogged by allegations of voter inducement. Several videos have gone viral showing political party activists in Kumewu sharing food items, clothes and cash, and the Ghana Integrity Initiative says such act remains a blot on the country's democracy and the efforts to demonetize elections. We'll hear from her shortly, but first here's a wrap from the elections yesterday.
It was one of the most anticipated by-election in Ghana's recent election history. The election literally pushed almost all the top brass of the leading political parties in Ghana to the Kumewu constituency to campaign for their candidates. The two independent candidates also ran spirited campaigns. A few hours into the election, controversy over signed pink sheets surfaced.
A lot of activity take place before, during and after. So he was saying that when he completed his portion, he asked them to put their names there, and the people went beyond and signed.
Security was tight as the Inspector General of Police, Dr. Ekufu Dampare, was on the ground with his men and women, but did not stop the confusion that erupted at the Bodomase Methodist Voting Center. the EC officer involved had to be whisked away. Allegations of vote buying was also rife as both sides accused each other of bringing delegates. When the dust settled, eventually it was Ernest Yawenim, the MPP candidate, who won.
By the power vested in me, Paul Ajimai, as the constituency returning officer for Kumewu, I hereby declare you, Ernest Yawenim of the NPP, as the member of Parliament elect for Kumewu constituency. Thank you.
Ernest Yawenim thanked his supporters for giving him the nod.
Now MPP, we are in a better position than the opposition party. So for now, we have cushioned ourselves and we are in a better position to implement the policies that His Excellency the President wants the party to implement.
And so a wrap there of events reacting to what happened. Political science lecturer Professor Ranford Jampo said the outcome of the polls will not have any bearing on the 2024 elections.
And when they do, they become overly intransigent about their choice. And so, in my view, the outcome of this particular by-election would have no bearing on what will happen in 2024. People have already voted in their minds and in their hearts towards 2024. They are just waiting. It was an MPP's backyard. They were going to win anyway, even though I will still describe this particular victory that I know would eventually emerge for the MPP as a victory with a taste of defeat, given the kinds of things that they had to do. I mean, in your stronghold, it should have been quote and unquote cocoa for you.
That's political science lecturer Professor Ransford Jampo, a position shared by political analyst and lecturer at the Cape Coast University, Jonathan Asante-Otri, who also condemned the monetization witnessed in the Kumewu constituency.
There was a need for them to, gather or marshal all resources available to them. And that is what they have done. But all the same, they didn't have to do that. But it's just unfortunate we've gotten to where we've gotten to. And by election, where it has been taken more or less like a Champions League in your own backyard, is indicative of so many things. One, that the people are disgruntled. Yes. Two, they may not come and vote for the NDC, but they wouldn't come and vote for the MPP either.
As political science analyst and lecturer at the Cape Coast University, Jonathan Asante-Otri, speaking there, and we'll get a lot more for you if you stay with us here on 3FM 92.7. The news is streaming live on Facebook and handles 3FM 927, as well as on Twitter, same handles 3FM 927, and get a lot more analysis on the outcome of the Kumewu by-elections, the lessons to be learned in terms of the peaceful nature by which all of it transpired, and as well the concerns of vote buying. There are those who've made the argument that the special prosecutor should take interest in the particular subject matter and should have issued a statement by now in relation to the vote buying as witnessed there. Let us know what you think as we continue to bring you the very latest here on 3FM 92.7. We're taking you to the court now because the state currently is presenting charges against a former member of parliament for Asin North, Richard Jachikwesin, after the Supreme Court last week and now the election which took him to parliament. The state has, amongst other things, brought charges which include deceit of a public officer, forgery of passport or travel certificate, knowingly making a false statutory declaration in contravention of the statutory declarations, perjury, and the false declaration of office. It will be recalled that earlier the Supreme Court ruled that his name be deleted or expunged from the records of Parliament, and that case is currently ongoing in court will get a lot more for you. But let's subject the decision by the state to take this matter up, criminal prosecutions, to some more analysis. Vitus Bang is a private legal practitioner and a law lecturer. He's joined us on the telephone lines. Many thanks, counsel, for speaking to us this afternoon. And so I'll start by asking general thoughts as to the decision. We know there's precedent to prosecution of such a nature, but considering the nuance in this particular case, a delay, as has been the defense of the former MP on the part of Canadian authorities in seeing through his renunciation of his Canadian citizenship, is this still the right step for the state to pursue?
Hello, good afternoon, and good afternoon to your listeners. Thank you for the opportunity. The decision to prosecute is in the hands of the state, exercisable by the Attorney General. So if the Attorney General, in his honest belief, thinks that a criminal offense has been committed for which the Honorable James Kwesen should be arraigned before a court of competent jurisdiction to try him for those offenses, I think that we will let that exercise of discretion pass. However, the state does not have less a duty. The state has a duty to prove beyond reasonable doubt that the said person has committed the offenses for which he has been charged. He has no obligation to prove anything unless and until the state discharges its burden. Now, in doing so, the state will have to rely on credible and relevant evidence to basically prove all the charges that have been leveled against him. But the thing is that if the state is able to succeed in proving beyond reasonable doubt any of the charges, there may be very serious implications for the honorable member. So, for instance, if the state were able to prove beyond reasonable doubt that the said person indeed committed the offense of deceit of a public officer, that means that James J.T. Kwesen could go into prison for up to 3 years. In respect of the forgery of passport or travel certificate offense, if he were to be found guilty of the offense, he would probably serve up to 2 years in prison for that offense. And in respect of knowingly making a false statutory declaration, if he were to be found guilty of the offense, he could be sent to jail for up to 3 years. And in respect of the perjury offense, the law regards it as a second-degree felony for which he could go to jail for up to 10 years. And then in respect of the false declaration of office, the law regards it as a misdemeanor for which he could go into jail for up to 3 years. So among all the offenses that he has been charged with, the perjury is the one that comes with a more serious punishment of up to 10 years. Now, the state has to prove beyond reasonable doubt each of these offenses. And if the state is able to do so on any of the counts, the Honorable James J.T. Kwesen could go to prison for any of those.
We know that the burden of proof would lie with the state, but for the Member of Parliament, you've explained quite clearly that he has nothing to do at this point. The state has to prove. For him who is contemplating that by-election, which is yet to be announced by the Electoral Commission, his party says they back him fully as the candidate to be the one to lead the party again. What should be his position now, because the state is picking up criminal prosecutions against him?
Well, clearly, I believe that he has lawyers representing him, and very good ones at that. I believe that they will advise him on what he should do. But I think that he's only being charged for those offenses. It doesn't mean that he has been found guilty yet. And there's a constitutional presumption of innocence of an accused person. So the law presumes an accused person to be innocent until proven guilty. And this is even the case for very serious offenses, such as even, let's say, murder. So even if for murder, the accused person is presumed to be innocent until proven guilty, how much more some of these misdemeanor offenses, and the serious one being perjury, which is a second-degree felony, which could land him to up to 10 years imprisonment. So I think that those criminal processes can be ongoing, whilst he also looks at his lawyers advise him on his constitutional right to stand for re-election. But, I mean, it takes quite a while to decisively deal with criminal cases of this nature, and I believe that he may just be lucky that, of course, that is not to say that he's guilty of any of those offenses, but the processes, the criminal prosecution may take a while unless the process is expedited. And I think that the Attorney General and the judge in question and the judiciary as a whole should exercise circumspection, because any attempt to probably expedite the trial would basically feed into the narrative of perceived relationship which is between the executive and the judiciary, which some may think that impedes justice. So if the judge in question, I believe, will live up to his or her oath of office, and I believe that the judiciary will be independent, and then the executive will stay off and allow justice not only to be done, but to manifestly be seen to be done. That will basically repose a lot of confidence in the public as far as the judiciary is concerned. So we are looking forward to seeing how this case will go.
Councillor, I appreciate that you could speak to us this afternoon.
A pleasure is mine.
That's Vitus Gban. He's a private legal practitioner and a law lecturer as well, speaking to us this afternoon on the ongoing court hearing where the state is bringing criminal prosecution against the former Asin North MP Richard Jachikwesin. And if I could just walk you through the charges again: charged with the deceit of a public officer, forgery of passport or travel certificate, knowingly making a false statutory declaration in contravention of the statutory declarations, perjury, and the false declaration of office. And those are the charges, really, and we'll be getting a lot more for you if you stay with us here on 3FM 92.7. Let's take you away from this now. And the reconstruction and decommissioning of the Kpong landfill site is currently 90% complete, and the site, which initially harbored waste, is being transformed into a recreational center that will benefit the Tema metropolis and the Kpong municipality. My colleague Judith Awachitano, she's there as the sanitation minister tours the facility. Judith, how exactly is this happening? A landfill site being turned into a recreational facility?
Right, Mawuena. So along with the Ministry of Sanitation and Water Resources, we have visited what was formerly known as the Pond landfill site. If you could quite recollect, some 3 years ago, this site was harboring a lot of rubbish, such that it became a danger to residents in the Tema metropolis as well as the Pond municipality. And so they were facing issues of, intense smoke, fire, sometimes even leakages of toxins into their water body. So this has become a danger. This was a danger to them. And this is what the ministry sought to address. And so currently the place looks totally transformed. The stench you'd smelled there some time ago, it's no longer there at all. The place has been covered with sand, silt. The debris or the rubbish that was there previously has been taken away and has been covered with sand and silt, as well as a carpet grass. And so there are terraces on which you can drive and go around that heap. You get it? And so it's a very nice and beautiful place currently. They've totally transformed the area. They are currently also there's some mechanisms in place that ensure that the gas and the water or liquid that was in that soil previously is being gradually taken out into a leach pond. And so this is what is happening currently. It's a new place altogether. And the ministry is quite excited about the prospect of this area in the future.
Beyond that particular facility, have you visited any other areas, and what has the minister been saying?
Right, and so we visited, apart from that, we visited a sewage processing area that is currently in the Ashaman community. For that was quite she just passed through that place quickly just to look at how the work has progressed over the years. Now, that place is supposed to, it's actually connected to some homes in Ashaman where the sewage or the waste is passing through that sewage system and being, detoxified before it's actually let out. So so that the toxins in the water don't go into water bodies or into the community. So that's one other place we visited. But apart from that, that's been the only places we have visited so far. But it's been, the minister has been quite excited. I spoke to her earlier. We all spoke to her, had a briefing with her. She spoke about the fact that she's excited about the project, how far it has come. They're told that we just have about 10% to cover before this project is completed. That is the Pond landfill site. And so they're excited about the project. They are hoping that this will be completed by the end of August. They are hoping that this would be done and it could be turned into a recreation center.
Right then, Judith Ochitando is my colleague in the Tema Metropolis, providing some more details there for us on the minister's tour of the area and some landfill sites in the country. You're listening to the news here on 3FM 92.7. We're streaming live on Facebook. Our handles 3FM 927, as well as on Twitter, same handles 3FM 927. Now, residents at Nangode, they've threatened to boycott the 2024 elections if the government doesn't continue with the abandoned Agenda 111 hospital. And they, amongst many other things, say that the hospital, 2 years down the line, the contractor by name TK Waters has abandoned the project and has not been able to provide them the needed health care. Let's return to one of our top stories this afternoon, where the board chair of the GNPC has been rubbishing claims to have him resign. We mentioned, or I walked you through that statement by the ranking member on the Mines and Energy Committee. Thankfully, he's joined us on the telephone line for quick reaction. Many thanks, Honorable Jinaport, for speaking to us this afternoon. And so we've seen, or we've read your statement and you raising the concerns. We've heard from civil society organizations as well. The group, the board chair of the Ghana National Corporation, Petroleum Corporation, they seem to be of the opinion that nothing untoward was done, and if it is the wish of the government to not continue with the engagement, then they will not continue. Your reaction to this as a minority?
So first of all, whose authority and whose permission did he seek before attempting to offload the shares? That's very critical, because oil shares are not just ordinary shares. These are shares that have long-term implications. Not forgetting that the minority had raised this more than a year ago, which culminated in the Minister of Finance appearing before Parliament and GNPC itself appearing before Parliament. At the parliamentary hearing, they assured us that the shares that were procured from Anadaco, which is this 7% shares under consideration, they were in the process of transferring the shares to GNPC. In fact, when GNPC appeared before the Mines and Energy Committee as part of requirements for approval of their work program, they assured us that the shares will be transferred to GNPC. So why this sudden U-turn and the attempt to offload the shares to a foreign entity? And don't forget, GNPC is a covered entity, and when GNPC is entering into a foreign engagement or foreign contract with Petro SA, they will require parliamentary approval. In addition to that, why was this not captured in their work program when they presented their work program to Parliament? Revenues accruing from the sales, what would that money be used for? There's everything wrong with this move. We condemn it and we call for a complete reversal of this intended sale of the shares. But that is not all. There's another important element.
Right.
When you read the Minister of Energy's response, obviously, government of Ghana, acting through the Minister of Finance, is seeking to use these same shares to go and borrow money. And my indication is that my sources tell me they want to borrow a whopping $650 million. The minority also wish to make it clear that we are completely opposed to this move. Any attempt to borrow money and forward sell our oil resources ought not be countenanced. This is a government that has borrowed its way into bankruptcy. Almost all our mineral resources, gold, bauxite, name it, cocoa, almost everything has a mortgage, to a extent that today we're a bankrupt country. And so we must not allow this government to use the very meager oil resources, which already is declining, as collateral to borrow $650 million.
But if
That is unacceptable.
if it's forward selling and these times are quite dire, you would agree that the revenues will be needed by the government.
We should be able to manage what we have today. If this money and spend it today, future generations, how are they going to survive? That is what has led us to this difficult problem that we find ourselves. Government kept borrowing, we kept cautioning. They did not listen. Today, the Sino-Hydro and all those so-called barter agreements have crystallized into loans. We are so broke to such an extent that even our pensioners, this government cannot even pay their coupons. So this should be a lesson. And it does appear that this government is not learning any lesson. And let me say that this is not a problem for the minority side alone. This should be a national call. I've had a lot of people say that what would the minority do? What would the minority do? It should rather be what would every Ghanaian do? What they are doing is bad, and all of you, including the media, must speak against it.
Right, then, Honourable. I appreciate that you could speak to us this afternoon. That's the Honourable John Jinapor speaking to us this afternoon, ending the bulletin here on 3FM 92.7. As always, a lot more news if you log on to 3news.com. Nanekia Mensa Brampa, she's on standby to bring us the very latest in the world of business. I am Eric Mawuena Egbeta. A pleasure that you could be a part of this afternoon's bulletin.
A very good afternoon to you, and thank you for joining us on Business Daily this afternoon. My name is Nana Ekwia Mensa Abrampa, and to begin with this afternoon, economist with the University of Ghana Business School, Godfred Bokpain, says government may have to do a lot more work if it is to achieve the debt sustainability by 2028. And this follows the IMF's declaration of Ghana as a debt-distressed economy following the country's long and protracted breaches to the debt sustainability analysis thresholds. And we'll be bringing you more updates on this particular one. Also, the board chair of the Ghana National Petroleum Corporation, GNPC, Freddie Blay, has dismissed claims that a contract is being negotiated to sell a 50% stake in Jubilee Holdings Limited to the South African oil business Petro SA. Now, this statement comes in response to calls from the extractive governance civil society organization CSOs for his removal from office following reports of alleged attempts by the GNPC to sell the stake despite its profitability. However, during an interview with another sister station, Mr. Blay clarified that no such actions have been taken by the corporation. And you would remember that there was this update on the fact that the GNPC had put up some sale of that is about 50% stake in the Jubilee Holdings Limited to the South African oil business Petro SA.
We have actually almost paid off that investment that the state even put into the asset. We had challenges with how the transaction was all structured. They broke every law necessary to acquire the asset, only to pass it on to Petro SA in the name of preemption. And
And that was Benjamin Boache. He is with the Africa Center for Energy Policy. We picked up his reaction on that as the CSOs on the extractive governance called for the immediate removal of the GNPC CEO and board chair over the actions the group says are a threat to the interests of the country. We'll be updating you more on this development subsequently. Now, the GRA has admonished the general public to demand VAT receipts from all transactions, especially from VAT registered shops. Addressing the media after a VAT compliance enforcement exercise in the Medina and Adentan municipalities, the Accra Area Enforcement Manager Joseph Annan hinted the authority in the near future will arrest consumers who fail to demand VAT receipts to face the law. Well, let's move on to some other stories this afternoon. As the governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Ernest Addison, says the Bank of Ghana Act needs more clarification and improvement. And according to the governor, the current act that governs the operations of the central bank still has some inconsistencies in its implementations and therefore requires a second look.
Important to clarify things in the act so that we are very clear. Measurement issues, procedural issues, and all of that. I think that that's the position, that we need to improve it, right, to make these things a little clearer. But I also pointed to the fact that given what we went through in 2022, even if those things were clear, right, the central bank would still have had to play that lender of last resort role to keep the economy, on track.
And that was the governor of the central bank, Dr. Ernest Addison, there asking for more clarity in terms of the current act guiding the operations of the central bank. In our subsequent bulletins, we'll be bringing you more on this as well as some other business stories. We do apologize for the loss of sound for some of our updates. But when you log on to 3news.com, you have more business news updates there. That's it for Business Daily this afternoon with me, Nana Ikia Mensa Abrampa. Enjoy your lunch and do have a good afternoon. Black Rasta comes up shortly.
Accra gets busy on this frequency. 92.7 3 FM.